Good morning. Almost afternoon. Thursday, Faith family. So nice to see you again. My goodness, it's Thursday, isn't it? It seems like so long since we've talked. But I was just kind of easing back into work yesterday, and a friend reminded me of the old Mark Twain story about when there were newspaper reports about his death. He had written in a cable back from England that the rumors about my demise are greatly exaggerated. And so that just came to mind yesterday as I was coming back and easing back into work. But anyway, jokes aside, I'm feeling better. Thank you, everyone, for your concern and the nice notes and your messages on Facebook. It was very much appreciated, and whatever I had was not to be messed with. It was a virus of some kind, not the coronavirus, thankfully, but it did lay me out for a good spell, and it was nothing to be messed around with. But anyway, we are on the mend, and as you can see behind me, I'm in my little office bunker, as the kids call it here at home, where I've spent most of the past week recuperating and ready to kind of get back into action. So welcome to Thursday. Number of things have happened since we last talked. Obviously, I was not in service on Sunday, but I know that many of you tuned in to Pastor Jill's service over at Comstock Hoff Lutheran Parish, and I'm grateful that she is there in times like that where our congregation can go and worship together with another faith family. So I was grateful for Pastor Jill and her welcoming our congregation. I'd also like, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a really awesome photo of Bridget and Piper Hendrickson on the Facebook stream. Go back and take a look at that. They're posing with their spoils. They were the victors of the Faith Lutheran Church Sunday School Trivia contest that the kids had on their last day of Sunday school, and it was really fun to watch them over the last few weeks as they learned their Bible studies and shared those facts about those different Bible stories with each other. And so it's just a great photo of the two girls. So congratulations to them. I see Kylie's watching. Give them a high five from me, and we'll see if they can repeat as champions next year. So go check that out. Also, you may have seen earlier in the week I did post, it's with much sadness that I relay to the congregation that Jackie Kragerud has passed. She passed at the hospital earlier this week. Thankfully, many of her family were able to surround her that evening and share those last moments with her. And just be a witness to her life. And Keith reported to me that they got the opportunity to share their grief with the hospital chaplain at the time. So I'm grateful for that chaplain ministry that exists there at the hospital. As many of you know, it wasn't that long ago that I went through my own CPE unit working at the hospital, and so I'm very grateful for the work that those chaplains do and that they're there in the times of need for our families, especially now when outside pastors can't go into the hospital. So grateful for the pastors and the priests that serve that service. And just heartbroken, but joyful that the Kragerud family were able to be with Jackie in her last moments. And so we hold her in our prayers. We hold the family in our prayers, and we ask that the Spirit wrap them in an embrace of love and peace and warmth in these coming days. We will be doing a private family service for Jackie on Monday. As you all know, we're still under some restrictions about how we gather and the number of people that we can gather with. And of course, we want to be very cognizant about safety. And so we'll have a private family service for Jackie and her family on Monday. And then the family and I will be planning a bigger celebration of life later sometime when we can get together with the entire congregation. And I can tell you, after talking with Ron and Keith and Pam, that we're all excited to do that. We know that Jackie holds a special place in many hearts, and so we can't wait till we get to come together and celebrate her special life all together. But that'll be down the road. And so meanwhile, please reach out to the Kragerud family and share your condolences with them, and just hold them up in prayer in the coming days. I would appreciate that. So there's that. The big thing on the plate, right? So obviously Governor Tim Walz was on last night and announced that Minnesota is relaxing some of its the stay-at-home restrictions and is moving more into a phase of stay safe Minnesota. That's what the new executive order is called. And in the last 3 days, I've had a number of Zoom conversations with pastors from across our synod. As you well know, we have our Tuesday clergy meeting with the bishop every week on Tuesday afternoon. And then just this morning, I was on another Zoom call with just the Moorhead Conference pastors. So there was, maybe 20 of us on that call. There was, 80 of us on the Synod call on Tuesday. And reopening is the big topic on everybody's mind. I don't care where you are on the spectrum of how you feel about reopening. We all have strong feelings about it. And the fact is that this is a hard time for everyone. No one asked for this pandemic. And this pandemic isn't picking on one demographic more than the other. We are all at its mercy. And so as we walk through this time, I just ask that we all do this with grace and extend grace to the other, because we just don't know where each of us are in this, and we don't know where those emotions come from, whether they become anxiety or fear or carelessness, in the sense of you don't have fear. So just ask that we all walk through this period. This is going to be a tough time for millions, not only in the sense that we're not through it. All of the medical experts and scientific experts tell us that a second wave is very likely, and that second wave is going to test us in ways that maybe even the first wave didn't. And so, we have an obligation, I think, as people of faith to try and incorporate our faith in how we react to this pandemic. And there are things that we can control, which is our emotions and how we treat others and how we exhibit Christ's love. There are things that we cannot control, decisions that our state leaders make, that our federal leaders make, that our synod bishop makes, that our wider ELCA church makes. And I am not spending a lot of time worrying about those decisions. I know that at some point we will be able to meet again in person. I don't know when that is. Everything we're being told is to fasten the seatbelt because it's going to be a while. And as I thought about that today, I went and I looked at a couple of scriptures, but the one that really stuck out to me was Romans 8:25, and I'm just going to read that quickly. It's just one short verse, and it's, again, this is Romans 8:25 if you want to go find it. But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. And I think that describes the situation that we're in. We all want to meet in person. We all miss being in our church together and worshiping together. We all miss the coffee hour afterwards. We miss the children running around the church. We miss funerals as we know them. We miss having our annual Memorial Day celebration that we get to host, and the American Legion blessedly allows us to host that each year. So we miss so many things. But we also have gained a lot of things in this past couple of months too. And I'm very grateful about the fact that our congregation has embraced new ways of ministry. You've been very gracious about our online presence and bearing with us when we were learning things. And the fact is that we're reaching far more now through our digital means than we ever did previously. There are people from all over the country that are tuning in on Sundays to see our services live or checking them out later on YouTube. And we've seen increased traffic on Facebook in these couple of months because new people are finding our ministry. And so, although we have lost much in the past couple of months, we've also gained. And so I'm going to focus on that. Getting down to the nitty gritty, I don't know when we will return to in-person services. Just looking at the guidelines that we have to follow, it tells me, it's going to be months still. We're nowhere on the governor's radar yet as places of worship. And in addition, when he actually does give the go-ahead with, if that's at the end of the month, there's a very detailed checklist as to what has to happen before we can start gathering even in person. And one of those things, the very first steep hurdle is that we have to have a decrease in the number of cases in the state for 14 straight days. And we're not even projected to peak with our deaths from coronavirus until the end of May. And so even when we reach that first hurdle and that we've reached a 2-week decrease in the number of cases reported, which will be weeks and weeks out there, even then we can only return back to service with a group of 10 or less and with no one in high-risk categories. So no one that has an underlying health issue, no one that is 65 or older. And so as you begin to look around our congregation, that makes service pretty hard to have, right? Again, phase 2, after we've went 14 days with a decrease in cases, then we have to go 28 days with a decrease in cases before we can move to step 2. And so on and so forth. And so just laying that out there so that you all know it's going to be some time before we have a normal church service. We have some plans in place. We've talked about this several times now about continuing to do our Facebook Live services, mixing in a service possibly from the bishop who's going to record some messages, in addition to relying on Pastor Jill at Comstock Hoff at times. And we may even have a lay leader that steps in on a Sunday that I'm not there this summer. So we're going to continue down this route. We have something set up for our VBS, which is going to be really non-traditional this year, but the kids are going to get a chance each month to touch base with each other. We're still going to be doing ministry with the kids. We'll still be doing ministry through our church. It just won't be in person in our sanctuary for a while. So please be patient. Be good to each other. We're all in this together. It doesn't mean that we still can't be church. We've proven this in the last 2 months. That we haven't been able to gather together. We can still be church together. We can still help our neighbors. We can still love our neighbors. We can still shine Christ's light out into the community. There's still plenty of nonprofits that need our help. I was on a Zoom session this morning with Pastor Sue Kesterman, who of course runs Churches United in Moorhead. If you remember, Churches United is a homeless shelter that is an ecumenical project that's supported by 37 churches. And not only do they run Churches United, but they also are running the Dorothy Day House. And just know that Churches United has switched the name of the shelter to Micahs Mission. But I'm going to use Churches United because that's what most people are familiar with. Anyway, I was on the phone with her today, a Zoom call, and they're hard hit. In a normal month, they might pack 150 sack lunches to send with people as people are going out to work and such. Today, as of today, they're serving 100 packed lunches every day. So imagine going from 150 sack lunches a month to 100 a day on top of their regular meals that they're serving. They are sheltering more people than they have beds for, and they're just really hammered. So think about that. There are ways, there are means that we can still be church without our beautiful sanctuary and without being able to gather on Sundays. And I think as we go through this time, the more we care for others, the more we exhibit that intentional love, I think it's going to ease our anguish a bit about not being able to come together in person. So, of course, you probably have already surmised that means that, our celebrations from the spring are still really up in the air. We've moved New Member Sunday off to the fall. Our first communion likely will be our first communion celebration will likely be moved to Rally Sunday in the fall. We're still trying to think through what it means for Senior Sunday, because obviously we have our 2 seniors that are graduating high school, and we're trying to think of something creative in a way that we can celebrate with them too. But the last thing I just want to touch on, one of the things that's coming up fairly regularly as I talk to other pastors in the region is communion again. I know that there are people that are missing communion. We have Lisa sent out with one of our bulletins, I think it was right prior to Easter, she sent home directions for you to be able to do communion in your home. And of course, that is absolutely allowable in this time. You can do the head of the household, so to speak, with quotes around that, can do a communion and is authorized to do communion at home. We're talking about how to do that as we continue to do digital services, and I just don't see a good way to do it at this point. I'm going to talk to other pastors and see what they're thinking, but just as you miss communion, I just want to remind you too that, it is okay to take a Sabbath from communion. Remember, there was a time that many of our ancestors before us, the saints that came before us, they might have only gotten communion once a year when a circuit preacher came through town, and so it's there is our salvation is not in communion alone, and I think you all know that. It's just a comfort, and it is a ceremony that we like to have because it reminds us of Jesus' sacrifice. But so if you would like those directions on home communion again, feel free to reach out to me or Lisa, and we can get those to you. Otherwise, we're just trying to figure out each of these pieces of service as we go. as you can imagine, no one has written a playbook as to how to pastor during a pandemic. Unless you know of one that exists, and please send that my way. So, okay, I think that covers the gist of it. Thinking about all of you again, I am slowly trying to work through our membership lists and reach out and call as I have time to be able to do so. But meanwhile, if you have a specific pastoral need, remember to reach out either through the church or through through my contact. You have my email, I think. You have my phone. Obviously, you can reach out through Facebook too. But we continue to do ministry, and I think that's the thing that I want to stress. We still are church, Faith Lutheran. We still have a vibrant congregation, and the Spirit is doing its duty to reach through the digital airwaves to bring us and unite us and knit us all together. So I think that's it. I will be back on Sunday. I'm excited to get back in the church and do service with our digital response team and bring you church from our beautiful sanctuary. And I'll just put this out there as a tease so that you have to tune in Sunday. But I'm told by a very reliable source who may or may not be on this Facebook Live right now, that there's some new faces in church every Sunday now. And so not only do we have our paper children and those paper adults that surprised me a couple of weekends back, I think we have a couple of guest celebrity paper people that are now populating our pews too. And so you'll have to tune in Sunday to see who that is and say hello. So, meanwhile, Faith family, may the Lord be with you. May He bless you, and may He shine upon your face. And just love intentionally, and be Christ's hands and feet. We'll see you on Sunday, everyone.